Welcome to the Hawaii Employers Council series on unemployment insurance. You are watching Part 1, the basics of how employers calculate unemployment insurance contributions in Hawaii. In this video, we will discuss three main topics. First, how is the unemployment compensation system structured? Second, what are the specifics of Hawaii's unique system? And finally, the state of Hawaii's unemployment compensation system in 2021. Now, today we are not addressing employers who self-finance their unemployment insurance. So nonprofits who are self-insured might not find this video relevant to them. Our unemployment compensation system, which provides workers with unemployment insurance, or UI, is a joint federal-state program. Those employers who do participate in the UC system pay federal taxes under the Federal Unemployment Tax Act, or FUTA, and state payroll taxes under state unemployment tax acts, known as SUTAs. On the federal side, FUTA does several things. First, FUTA imposes a 6% gross federal unemployment tax rate on the first $7,000 paid to each worker. However, if a state has no outstanding FUTA loans, states may credit up to 5.4 percentage points of state unemployment taxes paid against that 6% tax rate. As a result, the minimum FUTA tax rate is 0.6%, which winds up being $42 per worker per year. On the state side, payroll taxes are authorized by SUTAs, or state unemployment tax acts. Employers pay a tax rate based on their experience, which is the amount of unemployment compensation the employer has paid to its former employees. The more UC benefits an employer has paid to its former employees, the higher the SUTA tax will be on the employer. The various ratings an employer may have are framed by a schedule, which establishes both a minimum and a maximum tax. The whole point of an experience rating for employers is to create an equitable burden of UC program taxes among employers based on their use of the UC program. Hawaii employers' state annual contribution rate is assigned every March based on the employer's reserve ratio and the tax schedule in effect for the year. The reserve ratio is calculated by taking all of the contributions paid by the employer and subtracting all of the benefits charged to the employer. This number is then divided by 1/3 of the sum of the employer's taxable payrolls for the last 3 consecutive calendar years. The contributions of an employer are based, as we discussed above, on an experience rating system to assign individualized tax rates to employers based on their history of unemployment insurance. Generally, an employer with a large number of unemployment claims will have a high experience rating and a correspondingly high tax rate. The experience rating is then applied to the taxable portion of an employee's annual wages in each calendar year. For example, the taxable wage base for 2020 was $48,100, with employers paying a minimum of nothing per employee and a maximum of $2,690 per employee. On average, however, employers paid $630 per employee in 2020. There are 8 possible tax schedules, A through H, with A being the lowest and H being the highest. The tax schedule is determined by taking the current reserve, which is the balance in the Unemployment Compensation Trust Fund as of November 30th of that year, and then dividing it by the adequate reserve, which is the highest benefit cost rate from the last 10 years, times total wages for the last completed fiscal year, ending on June 30th. For example, in 2020, the tax schedule was C. All employers subject to Hawaii's UI program must submit a quarterly wage contribution and employment and training assessment report, or a Form UC-B6, along with the employer's contribution that is due on or before the last day of the month after the end of the calendar quarter. For example, the first quarter ends on March 31st, and employer's first quarter UC-B6 is due no later than April 30th. Late payments are penalized. To put this discussion into perspective, here is how to contribute the contribution rate. And if you look at this data, it shows you how to compute both the employer reserve ratio up top, as well as how the determination of the tax schedule is computed. And then at the bottom, you can see contribution rate schedules, as well as the tax schedule computation rate. Another helpful tool for employers is the tax rate calculator. This is also available on the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations website. Once you enter in the year on the tax rate calculator, you'll be asked to put in your reserve as of December 31st, 2019, your 2020 contributions paid, your 2020 benefits charged, as well as your annual taxable payroll back to 2018. Once you've entered in all of that information, you will have your tax rate calculated. One resource the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations website provides that is very helpful is this chart, which is entitled The Tax Rate Schedule and Weekly Benefit Amount. This chart goes all the way back to 2016, and you can see that from 2016 up through last year, we were at a tax rate schedule of C. This year, however, in 2021, we jumped to tax rate schedule H. What does that mean for you as an employer? Well, if you're a new employer, your tax rate schedule is now 5.2% instead of 2.4%. And for employers who previously contributed to the fund are now facing a maximum tax rate of 6.6% as opposed to 5.6%. In 2020, Hawaii borrowed funds under FUTA from the Federal Unemployment Trust Fund in order to meet its UC benefit obligations. Although Hawaii started out 2020 with a trust fund balance of approximately $600 million, the pandemic quickly ate through Hawaii's reserves. By the end of 2020, Hawaii's outstanding loan balance was $703,025,453. If Hawaii does not pay back the loan to the federal government promptly, Hawaii employers could face higher FUTA tax rates in the near future. Relatedly, as a result of our depleted reserves, Schedule H is in effect for 2021, with a taxable wage base set at $47,400. While the effect on each employer differs based on your experience rating and reserve ratio, an average tax rate could increase by $950 for each employee in 2021. Legislation is currently being considered to temporarily lower the schedule to reduce UI taxes for the next several years, and I'll discuss the details of some of these proposals in Part 2. Thank you for watching Part 1 of the Hawaii Employers Council series on the unemployment compensation system. Subscribe here to be notified of upcoming parts in our series.